Jai Hind to everyone. Welcome back to my IT tutorials, and today I'm going to start the Unit-3 Session-1, that is introduction or introducing database. Now this is the revision basically. Earlier we had already seen the what database is. Now database is organized collection of data that we store about an entity or object or about anything in organized manner. And you all know the importance of data. Data is very crucial for us. Without data we cannot move for a single bits. Once data is crucial, the maintaining the data, managing the data is more crucial. That's why we have need of a database, and to manage the database we have need of a DBMS software. And in your book we have either base or MS Access as a one of the database management software. So what the data is? Data are the raw facts and figure that we store in our computer, and the information is a meaningful data. Once your data is meaningful, it's called information. So data is a raw facts and figure that we store about a particular things in your computers, and once the data processed by the computer it become information. And to maintain the data we have need of a container that is called database, and to maintain the database we have need of a DBMS software, that is database management system software. So I hope this term data, information, database, and what is base and MS Access, these are the database management system software which help us to manage the data or database of any kind. Now there are broadly two kind of database. One is called flat database and one is called relational database. Now flat database is database in which we have a single table where we store all sorts of data. It means if I have a database where we have a single table and we stored all sorts of data in that, then that database itself is called a flat database. Whatever we stored in Excel sheet is an example of flat database, and whatever we stored in the base in the separate table is an example of a relational database. Now relational database is database in which we have more than one tables of the different kind where we stored the separate kind of data. That's what's called a relational database, and the table in the relational database are related on the basis of a common field that is called relation. So relations means association among the table in a database, or table in a database is called relation in RDBMS, relational database management system. So I hope data, then the information, then the what is database, organized collection of data about a particular topic that we stored in our computer is called database. And to maintain the database we have need of a DBS or RDBS software, that is database management system software or relational database management system software. And there are broadly two categories of the database. One is called flat database and one is called a relational database. Flat database where we have a single table in the database and we stored all sorts of data. So there will be of course ambiguities in the data once we are updating the flat database, because everything is together. So any updation and deletion of the data may somehow some way make some ambiguities in the database. Instead of deleting something else, you may delete something else, because every data, every sorts of data or different kind of data is stored in a single table. So it's always better to store the data, different kind of data in a different table, and that is what relational database management system is. So RDBS considered better than the flat database, or relational database considered better than the flat database, because we have a separate table and separate table carry the separate kind of data. That's why any addition or modification or deletion takes place in the table or a data will never again impact on other data. That is what the flat and relational database are. Now there are plenty of advantages of the database. Questions can be raised why we need the database. Now there are many advantages of the database. First and foremost, database help us to share the data. Once I have a computerized database, easily it can be shared among the people or with more than one people. But if it is a normal data like lying in the form of register or maybe somewhere else, it cannot be shared together with more than one people. So computer database allows to share the data with everyone easily. First and foremost, database also help us to, or computer database also help us to maintain the security of the data. Without permission, if you had applied some securities or validation restrictions on the data, it may not allow the other to use it. That's a great database also maintain the security. Efficiently you can work with the data. Mind it, efficiently you can work with the data, easily you can work with the data, your way of working will be very fast. These are the also advantage of the computer database. Computer database also reduce the redundancy, means duplicacy chances will be very less. It also again reduce the inconsistency in the data. You may not have a mismatch copy of the data lying in the computer. You have only one copy of the data and everyone is saying the same. That's called inconsistency. So it's avoid the inconsistency, it's avoid the redundancy, means duplication of the data. It allows to share the data. Concurrent users can work on the same database together without hampering and tempering the other. These are the some of the advantages of the database. So you can share the data easily, efficiently you can work, fastly you can work, and we have a bulk amount data you can store. It's also reduce the redundancy, it's also reduce the inconsistency, and it also again help you to easily maintain the data. These are the some of the advantages of the database. Now relational database, as I mentioned, is a database where we have more than one table and all tables are linked on the basis of one common field. That's what it's called a relational database, RDBMS. The relational database considered to be the superior than the DBMS. MySQL, SQL, Oracle, Sybase, Informix, Ingress are the example of a relational database. Now in your book we have a 4 objects that we'll see in the database that we'll create. One is a table, one is a query, one is a form, and one is a report. Generally we create these 4 things in any database. Now let's see what table in the context of database. In database, table is a prime object. Mind it, in database, table is a prime object where data is stored in the database. Database is a big container which never directly contain the data. Of course inside the database we store the data, that's why database is called container of data, but we have a small container that's carry the different kind of things in the database, and table is one of the container or prime object in the database which allows to store the data easily into the database. That is what table is. So what is table? Is a prime object, is a one of the object in database which help us to store data easily into the table or database in the tabular form in the row and column structures. Mind it. So that is what a table is. Now the query. Query is another object in the database which help us to extract, which help us to see the exact data that you want to see, not the entire data. Take an example, we have a bulk amount of data in my database. Lakhs of data are lying and a particular record are required to be searched. It will be a very tough process because out of lakhs of the record, if you are trying to search a particular record, then it's a really cumbersome task, or it will be a cumbersome task for anyone. But mind it, once you have an object query, then easily you will be able to do, because query is such a wonderful object in the database which help us to retrieve the data, which help us to extract the data, which help us to present the data what exactly you want from the database in the front of you, and that is what the query is. So, but mind it, query can be only possible once you have a table, at least one table, then the query. It means the first and foremost task of ours should be we must store data in database in the form of table, and then we can go for the query. So query is the next steps. If you want to see exact data, if you want to see the filtered data, if you want to see a particular kind of data from the bulk amount of data, then must have a query. That is a second again object. Third is a form. Now form is another object, or is one of the object in database that we create to enter the data easily into the table. Mind it, we have a table already. Data can be stored in the table directly, very fine. But if you want to enter the data into the table by easiest way, then we have a form. So form is an alternative way to enter the data in a table. Form is the easiest way to enter the data into the table. Form is an object which helps us to see a data one record at a time so that you can analyze the data in a better way, because once we'll open the table, every data will be there in the front of you, all data will be present, more than one record will be there in the front of you, and you may confused, or maybe you cannot analyze in a better way. But once I have a form, the single data, single record will be there in the form, so I can visualize, I can analyze that data in the form better than the table. That is what the form is. And the last object is report. Now report is a object, or it's a one of the object that we create in database to present the data in a presentable manner where no editing is possible. For an example, we have a monthly report, we have a weekly report, we have a yearly report, we have a report card of yours. Once someone is getting the report card, this is a final reflection of your performance where no changes at all is possible. For example, recently you finished your SA1 exams. Now if I'll talk about the report card of that, then that report card is a final outcome of yours, that of 6-month outcomes of yours, where no editing, no modification, no alteration is possible. So report help us to present the data in a presentable manner, the way we want to present it, and that is what the report is. So we have seen the table, query, form and report. These all four are object which have a different role to play in the database, where table store the data, query help us to retrieve the data or to extract the data what exactly you want, form help us to insert easily data into the table, and report help us to present the data in a presentable manner. So this is what the table, query, form and report. So with this note, I want to end this video, and in next video I'll continue. Kindly go through this video and enjoy it, like it, subscribe it, and further you can keep on watching to understand the concept that has given, and it's a revision of Unit 3 Session 1 of mine. Thank you all.